Hello, guys. Come on in. Come on in. Today, we're going to be talking about the mysterious disappearance of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. We've had some very interesting developments over the last week or so, and we're going to be talking about this. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects and share with you how to do the same thing. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, it's free. Please do. It's free and it helps me out a lot with the YouTube algorithm. It lets the YouTube know that you want to see content like this. And if it also lets me know that you're interested in seeing content like, share, leave a comment. And I just want to CYA myself and just know that everything I am sharing with you is my opinion. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Let me move myself up just a bit. I don't want to block Lilly and Jack. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about this case. We've had quite a bit of new information. Come on in. Tell me where you are from. Today, we're going to be talking about the disappearance. We're going to look at statements from three different professionals coming from slightly different points of view on this case. We're going to go through the stepfather Daniel's latest statements and the 35 people that law enforcement is conducting formal interviews on, what's going on with this, and the meaning behind the collection of the trail cameras. Why are they collecting this now? For those of you that are not familiar with this case, I'm going to do a very brief overview and then just direct you to the last live stream that I did. But Lilly and Jack, I just do want to point out these two precious children right here. That's why we're all here, right? We're here to find Lilly and Jack. Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Lilly is 6 years old. Jack is 4. Have been missing. They were reported missing on May the 2nd. They were last seen in school on April the 29th. Police received a 911 call from their mother and father and stepfather. Police say they were told that the children had wandered away from their Lansdowne Station home in the Nova Scotia area of Canada. That's just a little bit northeast of Halifax. They searched for Lilly and Jack for 6 days, going through 5.5 square kilometers of the most dense wooded forest. Because I think from law enforcement's point of view, if the children did wander away, how far could they have gotten? They're just 4 and 6. So come on in, tell me where you're from, and let's go ahead and dive into this. You guys know I like to get started. So I want to talk about the 35 people that law enforcement has pulled in for formal interviews. And then we're going to go through the statements of the three professionals weighing in on this case, stepfather Daniel's latest statements, and the meaning of the collection of the trail cameras. And then I'm going to share my analysis of this case, of what I believe happened, in just a few moments. So please stay with me. So the police have identified 35 people for formal interviews as part of the investigation into the disappearance of Lilly and Jack. Now, this has included community members. Now, think about how tiny this community is. Lansdowne Station has approximately 110 people that are related to each other or all know each other. 110 people is a very small town. So it sounds like 1/3 of the people are getting pulled in for interviews as part of this investigation. So it makes me wonder if they're maybe thinking that this was not a wandering away, like was what was pointed out at the beginning. So let's consider the statements from the three professionals in this case. And then we're going to look at stepfather Daniel's statements and the meaning behind the trail cam searches. Why are they getting the trail cameras now? So let's start with Michael Arnfield. He is a criminologist, and let me take this down and pull this up. Okay. And move myself over here. So this is a criminologist. So I think this is a very interesting point of view, because a lot of people are wondering if this is swung now from a search and rescue into a criminal investigation. Let me know what you think. So going to just keep their picture up there because I think that's important. So let's talk about what he said. So his name is Michael Artfield, and we're going through three different professionals. We're going to go through all three. So this is number one and what his take is, and then we're going to go through the next two professionals, because I think having professional people looking at this case versus just lay people is important. So he's from the Western University at London, Ontario, and he told the CBC that this case, when you overlay it on 100 other missing children's cases, it doesn't add up at many levels. And this is what a lot of you guys have felt like from the beginning, that there's something about this case that just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It's an anomaly. Now, he said that he called this case unprecedented. And I think the reason that it's unprecedented is because it is in such a rural area. The woods around there are densely wooded, but also to have one sibling go missing, one child disappear, okay, but for both to just vanish is very unusual. So he said that it's highly unlikely, and statistics do matter, for two siblings who live together to vanish when a parent is not involved. So he thinks that there is some type of parental involvement. He said, quote, and there's no evidence of that. If that had been the case, I think we would have heard about it very quickly. He emphasized this case, when you overlay it on 100 other missing children cases, it just doesn't add up at many levels. He continued, he said that he thinks police should be more forthcoming with information about the case, given that the public is being solicited for information. The law enforcement has been very tight-lipped on this. This has been frustrating for a lot of people. They probably know more than we do, and they may be trying to protect their case. He said that following up on 180 tips requires a great deal of resources. He said, so they are asking for the public's help. So should they be more forthcoming? Let me know what you think in the comment section. If you think law enforcement needs to be more forthcoming with what they know, put a yes in the chat. If you think law enforcement should be protecting the integrity of their investigation, put a 2 in the chat. So 1 if you think law enforcement should be more forthcoming, a 2 if you think law enforcement should protect the integrity of their case, and we'll see where you guys are at. Let's continue with this first exhibit because we have 2 others to go through, and then we're going to talk about the trail cams. Why is this being collected now? He said police can't be everywhere, so they rely in cases like this on eyes and ears of the public, and that needs to be a two-way street in terms of information. So he feels like if you want the public to give you information, you need to give them information. And I'm wondering if this also is relevant because of how small Lansdowne Station is, with 110 people who all know each other and maybe even related to each other. So he said otherwise they're just going to get tips that really just bog down the investigation and aren't necessarily of any substantive value. He also said that police should have said publicly in the early days of the search whether the case was considered suspicious. He said, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that there is some active lead being worked and they don't want to upset the equilibrium that they're in. But this is a criminologist speaking. Based on appearances, this went in the wrong direction early on, and key momentum and leads were lost when they were out in the fields looking for the kids that maybe were never there to begin with. So if you believe the police should be more forthcoming about this case, put a 1 in the chat. If you believe that police should protect the integrity of the investigation, put a 2 in the chat, and then I'm going to come in and look. So let's look at the statements from the second professional. We have 3, and then we're going to piece it all together because I think getting professional eyes and ears and their input on the case is really important. And then we're going to talk about the meaning of why this trail cam information. Why now? Why didn't they collect this early on? So the other investigator is named Stephen Ryan. Now, he's a former homicide investigator, and he told CTV on Thursday that, quote, the story that the mom and stepdad have provided to the police was that they woke up and the kids were gone. Given that there is no witness to what happened, that leaves a very gaping hole in this investigation. And many of you guys have shared with me in the comments that you feel like this is a big problem as well. He also said that he's been following the case closely. Again, this is an investigator, a law enforcement investigator that does criminal homicide investigations. He said that he believes the lack of witnesses is likely presenting a major obstacle. And I'm just wondering the fact that this is 110 people in Lansdowne, but also the location of the house. For those of you that are like, what is she talking about? Because you're new to the case. Let me just put this back up and show you this. Where this look of the house is. You can see this is the house. It's a trailer, mobile home, and then around it you can see how the woods all around it. So clearly, this is a densely wooded area. I just don't believe that these two uh, children could have gotten far further than where they've searched. So Ryan said, being that there's no, he said the story that the mom and stepdad have provided to the police was that they woke up and that we're gone. It sounds like he's not buying the story either. Given that there are no witnesses to what happened, that leaves a very gaping hole in the investigation. He said that the search may have been scaled back on a multi-layer investigation is still active. He said, quote, there is an awful lot going on behind the scenes, looking around the clock when the police were looking for two children or trying to see if there was foul play involved. Now, some people have pointed out that they think that the reason that law enforcement announced that the search was being scaled back was to see what kind of a reaction they would get from the parents. Would they, react to this and demand law enforcement do more? Because the typical reaction that you get from parents when they tell of missing children, when they're told that the search is being scaled back, is they usually get upset. They get upset with law enforcement. So they may have been looking for a reaction for some key clues. So in addition to suspecting foul play, kidnapping has not been ruled out, according to this particular law enforcement investigator. He said that missing cases are traumatizing for any community, but especially a small, closely knit community like Lansdowne Station in Nova Scotia. He said, quote, everybody is a suspect. And I agree with this. I feel like if this was an abduction and it was not the parents or the stepfather that did it, then it has to be nobody. It's very unlikely, statistically, very unlikely that a stranger would have gone to this rural area and happened upon both Lilly and Jack and been able to lure both of them. Not impossible, but statistically very unlikely. So it had to be either the stepfather and the mother are somehow involved, or someone in this community. So the law enforcement pulling in 35 people for interviews is very interesting. He said everyone is a suspect. This is according to a criminal homicide investigator. You've got a small community. They're all peering out the windows, looking at vehicles driving by and wondering if this could be the person that took these two children. They want to know what happened to these two children. Police have said they do not believe that Lilly and Jack were abducted, but they have not ruled it out, and the case is suspicious. So now let's look at the statement from the third professional, but I want to check in on the see if we have some ones and twos in there. So for those of you, the poll that we're doing, if you're just joining me, come on in, tell me where you're from. We are doing a poll wanting to know, there you go. I lost my place on my notes, so I apologize. But wanting to know what you guys thought about this. Okay, I got it. All right, let's check in with chat. Sorry about that. Thank you to Six Sense Amelia for modding today. She is one of our head mods. Thank you for modding. Yes, and Lily was sick. This is such a great point by Catherine, because a lot of people have pointed out that, yes, we had, the kids weren't seen in school till April 29th. And a lot of people said, well, why keep Jack home if Lily was sick? Why not still send Jack to school? And I think this is a valid point. I think the fact that they were both kept home, has just done nothing but raise suspicion. So Sandy thinks it's a 2. Crafty one, hey, good to see you. Hi, Sarah. Nicole thinks it's a 1. Jewel says the reason I think the police should protect the case because the purpose. So if you think law enforcement should be more forthcoming, put a 1 in the chat. If you think law enforcement should protect the case, put a 2. Jewel thinks that the police should protect the case because the perpetrators don't need to know the police's hand. Starla says, I don't think the kids were sick. She thinks something nefarious happened. Watching my words here. Holly said, welcome everyone. Please give this a thumbs up. Thank you so much for modding today, Holly. Leslie says hello. 2. 2, Angela said, I don't think they were ever out there. So you don't think they were in the woods. And so I'm going to talk about why I think the real reason of this trail cam footage is getting picked up in just a second. And Elizabeth put a 1. Linda put a 1. Jordan says, I think they would have found something, some evidence of them wandering off. Samantha said, gone. Amelia said, please be careful about the word choices in chat. Abbreviated words are likely to be censored. Yeah. This is our head mod, NJazz. This is our other head. So this is our head mod, 6 Cents Amelia. This is our other head mod, NJazz. And our other head mod is Brother Mike. I haven't seen him yet today. But I want to see if what you guys think. I'm looking for 1s and 2s. The WV Holla Girl put a 1. All right. Should law enforcement be more forthcoming? Put a 1. If you think they should protect their case, put a 2. Starla puts 2. 2. Triple L says both. So maybe a little more forthcoming, but still protect your case. 2. Linda says she does not trust the parents. 2. Triple L said, I think you have to do both. Samantha says loose lips sink ships. HH says they were never in the woods. The dogs didn't hit. Yeah, I think that's interesting too. So why are they getting this trail cam? I'm going to tell you, we're going to look at what they're saying, but I'm going to tell you what I think. Nicey Marie said the grasses really looks green from the finger system from the septic tank. Needs drain, my opinion. Oh, wow. Mother says 2 as of now. I could change my mind later. Yeah, you could change your mind. It's just what you think right now with what we know so far. Jet put a 1 in. And Lisbeth said, I don't think they went into the woods. Kathleen said, I think they're looking for a suspicious car. Jackie says, hello, HS1. All right. Holly says, Brother Mike was in earlier. He might pop in a little bit. Maybe he had something to do. Thanks for modding today, Holly. Thanks for modding. Thanks for the input, Mark. All right. So we got a lot of kind of a mixed bag there. All right. So let's continue on with expert number 3. So expert number 3 is an associate professor in the criminal justice department at University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Her name is Michelle Janis, and she says that the facts of the case and the apparent lack of evidence makes it an anomaly. So we're hearing from all 3 experts a similar narrative, which is that this is unusual. This is unprecedented. This is not normal. To have both siblings disappear together makes this an anomaly. She continues. She says it does not meet a lot of the normal criteria for what we see with these types of cases. Now, her research includes missing persons and juvenile justice. So I think her input as a different type of a expert is really important. She said, usually there is evidence in some way that would suggest something nefarious that happens. It's mirrors those adult missing person cases when we call it quiet disappearances. So there's no evidence. So she's calling this a quiet disappearance. So she thinks it mirrors that. And a few details that stand out to her as unusual include the children's absence from school that week. And a lot of you guys have felt the same way. You really feel like it's a problem. And I saw a couple of people say, well, Jack was only 4. He didn't need to go to school. Okay, but if that was, I'm not talking about whether he needed to go to school or not. What I'm trying to say is if that's the normal, if he normally attends school, why would you keep him home just because Lily had a cough? If that's the normal to go to school. Some people said, well, if one child is sick, you keep them all at home. Again, I haven't been able to find any information that substantiates that you would keep both home if only one had a cough. So if it's not normal, and Jack normally does go to school, why that right before they disappear, have they both been kept home from school? So Daniel Martell, he's the children's stepfather, and the mother of the children is pointing the finger at him. He told CBC News that the children were not in school on Thursday or Friday, the morning of the disappearance. Lily and Jack's mom has told us that it was because Lily had a cough. But we know they weren't in school on Wednesday because it was a professional development day. But Professor Janis weighs in on this too. So she says, quote, it could be incredibly bad timing that they had 48 hours unaccounted for before the disappearance. But that's just one of the things that stands out in my head. She said she also believes that police should be considering whether a person played a part. Now, I am not saying that, for sure it was the stepfather or for sure it was the mother. It could have also been somebody in that circle of people, right? Elizabeth Smart, for example, was kidnapped out of her own bed in her home by a worker that her father had employed to work at the home. So somebody was in the intimate circle of Elizabeth Smart. But it is a red flag, in my opinion, that the kids were not in school, because we have this 60 hours of the only people that we have an accounting of where the kids were is mother and stepfather. So she continues. She said that she believes the police should be considering whether a person played a part. She said in a stereotypical kidnapping by a stranger, the offender doesn't usually target a specific child or children. They create a plan, and whoever's in the environment at the time falls victim. However, I just think this is so unlikely, that because of the rural location of this home and the fact that there's only 10 people, give or take, in this community. So she continues. She says it doesn't seem like it would be the case here, because what we know is they were in their backyard in a rural community. So it's not like they were walking to school or the gas station or something where it can be an easy snatch situation. Now, the only situation that I've been able to come up with where they could have been grabbed by a stranger is and we know Lilly disappeared with her backpack. So and they both had their boots on. So if they had their boots on and went to the bus stop, then I could see potentially a stranger. But then that doesn't account for the odd story from mother and stepfather, where they heard the kids playing in the backyard, and then suddenly they were gone. So things just aren't adding up, and I can see why there's so many red flags. So she said, if this is still this professor talking, she said, if this was a stereotypical stranger kidnapping, it would have had to have been somebody who said, I want those kids in particular. And again, the idea of them taking two of the kids is so unusual and so unlikely. So let's look at the statements of stepfather, and then we're going to talk about the meaning. Why are they collecting this trail camera now? And then I'm going to give you my analysis of what I think is going on in this case. But let's talk about the stepfather. So he told CBC News on Friday via an email that he was told by police not to disclose updates during the investigation. Okay. The maternal grandmother, Cindy Murray, has said that the police have advised the family against speaking to the media. When asked if he had anything to do with the children's disappearance, Daniel was adamant. He said, I 100% did not, and I will hold that to my last day on this planet. He also told us that he gave them, law enforcement, his phone. He offered medication tests. I offered them lie detector tests. Now, we don't know for sure if this is true. This is just what Daniel is claiming, but law enforcement has not come out and said this is not true. He told the Canadian press that he voluntarily attended a 4-hour interview with major crime investigators. So I think this is a good sign that Daniel is cooperating with law enforcement. The 4-hour interview, I'm going to assume, was, this is my opinion. They would have wanted to lock him into a story. And I think it's a good sign that Daniel was willing to sit down and give them this interview. But it doesn't mean, we can rule him out either. But I think it's a good sign that law enforcement is investigating this less as a wandering away and more as a maybe cover up, some kind of neglect. So let's talk about the trail cam footage next. Let me grab that, because this is really interesting. Like, why are we collecting this now? Why is this? Why now? Why not at the beginning? So how we found out that they were getting this was one of the neighbors came forward, and the source on this is the CBC, and she said that her name is Melissa Scott. She said she was visited on May 20th, so 4 days ago, by 2 officers from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Major Crime Unit, who inquired if she had any trail cameras set up on her 16-acre property in Glengarry Station near where Lilly and Jack disappeared. She told law enforcement she had 7 trail cameras on her property. She said one points down to her driveway to keep track of who comes in and goes. Another is positioned near the house, and the rest are scattered throughout the woods to monitor the wildlife the family hunts on their property. So it's kind of nerve-wracking that there's hunting going on near where Lilly and Jack disappeared. She said it takes about an hour to walk the coverage area of the 7 cameras. She said, I did mention to investigators that I was very happy to see them and glad they were canvassing a little further and looking at trail cam footage. She said they did respond by saying they probably should have been around earlier. I agree. So why are they coming? So this map right here kind of shows you where she is in Glengarry, Nova Scotia, and then Lansdowne Station here, and then the house, which is right in here. So I don't know how far the kids could have gotten. So in my opinion, they may be looking at the trail cam footage for Lilly and Jack, but I think they're looking at trail cam footage, in my opinion, to see if somebody either abducted Lilly and Jack or disposed of Lilly and Jack using some type of off-road vehicle. Let me know if you have a different take. I just think it's so unlikely that a perpetrator would have randomly come up to this rural house and grabbed them out of that fenced backyard with 2 adults at home inside the home. It's not impossible, but grabbing both or luring both away just seems extremely unlikely that this would have been a complete stranger. So more likely this is someone that is in the periphery of the mother and stepfather. So she said that she was given a USB drive to load her trail cam footage onto, and she was initially asked to give him her footage from May 1st to May 3rd, but then they expanded the request to April 27th to May 3rd. So that April 29th, where the kids were not in school, it looks like they are, expanding that to include everything. And they also probably want to rule out that somebody was, in and around the area, April 28th and 29th. Maybe, if it was somebody in the periphery of the mom and stepfather, somebody known to the family that wanted the kids for nefarious reasons, were they lurking around the house in the days leading up to their disappearance? What do you guys think? She said she handed over the footage on Thursday. Her Glengarry property, you can see here, is an 8-kilometer drive from the Lansdowne Station, right here, down dirt roads, but it's also connected by these train tracks and the clearing for utility lines. So I think an off-road vehicle could have easily been spotted, and I think that's what they're looking for. So my question is, who do they think was driving that off-road vehicle? Who's driving that AVT vehicle? She said that she posted in a private community Facebook group asking her neighbors if they too had been visited by the Royal County Mounted Police. And she said that 2 other people responded that they had also been approached for footage. So this is huge. They are looking now, we know, from April 27th to see if anyone was lurking around the property all the way up through the 3rd of May. So I think that this is huge. And I think this tells us that maybe they're looking to see if Lilly and Jack could have wandered away. But I think it's more likely they're looking to see if somebody grabbed them or if somebody disposed of them. The CBC News spoke to one neighbor who did not want to be named, but confirmed they were asked by investigators for trail cam or security footage. So it sounds like law enforcement's going around and collecting this from everybody that they think might have trail cams. She said, this is back to Melissa Scott. She said she was asked to confirm information about her family's vehicles in order to rule out local traffic on the footage. So again, this tells me that they're looking for off-road vehicles. So did somebody use them to dispose of Lilly and Jack or to abduct Lilly and Jack? And again, this is where that them not going to school is, in my opinion, a problem for the stepfather and the mother. Doesn't mean they did it, but it's a problem for them, in my opinion. The CBC News requested an interview with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to ask specific questions, including why are they seeking the trail cam footage prior to the children's disappearance, and what are they Why are they identifying local vehicles? And in my opinion, it's because they know that this, for both of these kids to be, if they were abducted out of their own yard, this would have been somebody that's in the periphery of this family or in the family, in my opinion. So they're trying to rule people in and rule people out. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police declined the interview request, and the spokesperson pointed out that the most recent news interviews from May 18th provide the latest details from the search efforts. So they scaled back the search, but now they're the physical search, and now they're looking for trail cams. So this is the train tracks, and you could see how easily it would be for somebody on a off-road vehicle to move around. So let's put this back up. And I just don't know how far these little ones could have possibly gotten on their own. I don't think they would have gotten very far. I think and I just find it really hard to believe statistically that they would have left the yard. I mean, these were kids that, were in a fenced yard. It's not saying they couldn't have gotten out. So I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's unlikely, in my opinion, that they both would have left the yard voluntarily. So either something was done to them and they were disposed of, or and more likely an accident of some type. Peter Hyatt has always told us that one of the easiest ways to bring harm to a little one is to simply neglect them. So were the mother and stepfather lying in this bed for more than just a day? And what were they doing? Who were the types of people that they were associating with? Who's in their periphery? Did anyone show an unusual interest in both Lilly and Jack? Because again, abducting one or the other would make sense, but taking them both? Very, very strange. It's an anomaly. It's statistically not impossible, but very close to that somebody would have taken both. That did as a stranger danger type of abduction. Just doesn't happen. Usually perpetrators like this prefer, one child over another child. So it makes me wonder how long the parents, the mother and stepfather were really in bed. I don't believe that she was watching the kids at all times in the backyard. And a lot of you guys have had problems with her statements about this, that, she's some kind of a helicopter mom that's, watching the kids at all times. I do not believe that this is the case. I think that there was reputation building in their statements, the helicopter parent, which is a problem. Because most parents aren't more concerned with building their reputation than the children being found. Now, this could just be a simple case of the parents happen to have some narcissistic tendencies or just very, very worried about what people are going to think about them in a small town, but it's unusual. We also didn't hear an outcry from the mother when law enforcement called off the search. This would have been a chance for her to get out in front of the cameras and demand that they not call off the search and that they, continue to search for the children and just, come across as angry. Now, maybe privately she got angry with them, but in my opinion, if they just called off the search in an effort to see what kind of reaction they were going to get from Malehya and from the stepfather, Daniel, I think that calling off the search should have garnered a reaction. I'm also very surprised that even whatever problems that she's having with Daniel, that she has not come back at all to look for Lilly and Jack. Wild horses wouldn't be able to drag me away from searching. I understand maybe she doesn't want to live there with him, especially if she thinks he did it, which is what she's, alluding to. Now, I have heard the reason that she left the house. We've heard different reasoning, so I'll just go through the theories with you guys. Curious what you guys think. But I've heard several different reasons of why she needed to leave the house with Daniel. One is that Daniel owns that house. It's his family's property. But why was she pointing the finger at him? Supposedly, CPS was threatening to take the child that she had with Daniel, the baby, the 16-month-old that she had with Daniel, that they were threatening to take this child if she didn't vacate the property, that they didn't think that the property was safe for for a baby. And if you look at the backyard, I think it looks pretty okay. But when you get into, I think there is some debris and stuff, but it looks like a fun place to play for Lilly and Jack. I don't know how safe it would be for a toddler, but the front yard is really concerning. And then when I showed you guys the interior pictures of the mudroom, and let me see if I can pull those up really quick. I think that's really a problem. And I think that was Global that had that. I think that really is a problem, in my opinion. That the mudroom was just, we could see things laid against the window. We could see how messy it was. So maybe she was asked to take the kids and leave the premises by CPS. Maybe she just wants to throw shade at Daniel and take the heat off herself. Or maybe she was told she had to leave. Let me know what you think happened here, because I'm getting different reports. They didn't think that the house was fit for a 1-year-old, and they, supposedly told her, or they were going to take this baby. They were also able to, we were seeing the images I showed you guys in the last live stream that I did, the mudroom with stuff piled up, and how we were able to see this was we were able to see this in the window. And it's trying to play an ad. Let me see if I can pull this up.
Search, but this is weighing heavy on the minds of certainly people in Pictou County, but well beyond as well.
A wide-scale search was carried out over 6 days, but efforts were scaled back on May 7th, with police saying there was little chance the siblings were still alive. However, more than 100 volunteers renewed the search over the long Victoria Day weekend, targeting specific areas around.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about, where we could see some of the inside of the house. And you can see in the window here, there's a side door. Let me just make sure we're all looking at the same thing. There's a side door here. And you can see there's, debris outside the house. I can see why people maybe didn't think this was like the safest place. But you can also see in the window of this bedroom that there's, looks like some items piled up in the window of the house. And so I do believe it's possible that CPS did say that the house was not fit.
Around the road near their home.
And you can
on
see
Tuesday.
If you see how much trouble adults having going through this with all their equipment and gear, imagine a little 4-year-old and 6-year-old toddling. How far could they really have gotten on their own? I don't think very far.
RCMP declined our request for an interview for an update. In a statement, the Mounties say investigators and search managers will be reviewing information collected during the searches on Saturday and Sunday and determining next steps. The children's stepfather says he's thankful to all the people searching for Lilly and Jack, and he refuses to give up hope.
The snare everyone's hoping for is we bring them home. That's the main objective. It's always been that from.
And you can see from the road behind him, the chances of a stranger coming by and just getting these kids, it reminds me a lot of the Summer Wells case. It just seems unlikely that a stranger. So I think if this was an abduction and somebody was targeting both kids, again, this is so unusual to target both of the siblings. It had to be somebody that was known to Lilly and Jack.
Day one.
The disappearance has sparked rampant speculation on social media, much of it involving Martell. He calls it all nonsense and says he's had nothing to do with the disappearance.
It will never be enough for a lot of people online. I mean, everywhere I go, people stare. But that's something I have to live with until, the truth makes its way out. And the truth always makes its way out.
Sky Blom, Global News, Halifax.
I do think it's sad if he did not do anything, that he's, being dragged. I do think that's sad. But you can see here the house. You can see the debris around the house. You can see in this mudroom window, the door entrance is here. You can just see stuff piled up all the way almost to the top of the window. Boxes, and other debris. And then in this window also, if you look closely, you can also see that there is, looks like just stuff leaning up against the window. This one, it looks okay. These two both have curtains, so I don't know if there's anything in the house, leaning up against it. But it does make me wonder, what was really going on in this house. So I just wanted to show you guys that. And then from the backyard, I think the backyard would have been a pretty great place for Lilly and Jack to play. Yes, the yard is fenced. It's not impossible that they would have gotten out there, but I just don't see them. Why would they both leave, and why wouldn't we have any scent dogs? Nobody's picking up a trace of them except for 2 footprints. It just doesn't make sense. And then Malehya's statement that she, watched the kids all the time, was like a helicopter mom, is I don't think is believable, because they did have a 1-year-old. And if you guys have ever had a 1-year-old, there's like a year or two when that child starts toddling around that you don't sit down. You're like just up and down, getting a 1-year-old. It will keep you very, very busy as a parent. So I just don't see how it would be possible for her to be watching the kids outside while they played at all times. I think, and the fact that they didn't go out on that day, just further confirms, in my opinion, that it would be unlikely that they would, suddenly be, not watching the kids on that day of all days. They laid in bed when, and didn't hear the door open, but knew the kids were outside, but didn't get up to check. I just don't believe that was the only day that happened. I think the kids would have played normally in the backyard on their own, and I think they would have had a great time. I think it's it looks like a fun backyard. They had chickens. Is it a little bit cluttered? Yes, but it's not, the backyard is not that bad compared to outside of the backyard and around the house. So it makes me wonder if something nefarious happened to the kids. So let's go through. I want to go through through the timeline, and then I want to give you guys my analysis of what I think happened. So we know on April 29th that this was the last day that Lilly and Jack attended Salt Springs Elementary. That's a small rural school, about an 18-kilometer bus ride from their home. There was no school the next day because it was some type of a teacher day. But the kids were kept home on May 1st and May 2nd. And according to their mother, they were both at home because Lilly had a cough. And again, why would Jack have been kept home? To me, that doesn't make sense. I'm not saying it means they did anything. I just think it's a red flag. At 10 a.m., the mother calls 911 to report that Lilly and Jack were missing. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police issued a vulnerable missing persons alert in Pictou County and asked for the public's help in locating Lilly and Jack. And at that time, I do believe law enforcement really did think they wandered off from the house. But after they've done that grid search and no sign of them, not clothing, not a boot, not a backpack, nothing, I just think, it's hard to believe. I think that they just wandered away. But they didn't issue an Amber Alert, and still have never issued an Amber Alert, because they believe that abduction is unlikely and that the case did not meet the necessary criteria. And they have gotten some backlash about this because, even though it was unlikely, maybe as a precaution, could they have issued an Amber Alert? And maybe they should have gotten the trail cam footage sooner. On May 3rd, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police issued a broadcast intrusive alert, a public cell phone notice that the children were missing, to people in Antigonish, I'm sorry if I mispronounced this, you guys, Colchester and Pictou counties. The Mounties Major Crime Unit became involved in the investigation. And then on May 3rd, the mother and stepfather attended a briefing at the search and rescue headquarters in Lansdowne Station. And Daniel said that the mother left midway through the update to sit in the back of an ambulance. I think that's interesting. Now that we only have his word for that happening, but it is interesting that they are pointing fingers at each other. She departs with her mother, and Daniel said he hasn't seen her since. She cuts off contact with him after that. So it seems like the mother believes that Daniel is involved. Is she right? Sometimes a mother knows. Or is she just pointing fingers to distract from her own negligence? I'm really surprised that the mother has not come forward to participate in any of the searches. I don't know what to think about that. Let me know what you guys think. I've heard different reasons as to why she needed to leave Daniel, from him being abusive to her, to CPS threatening to take the third child that she had with Daniel. To me, it would have said, maybe gone for a day or two, let him clean up the house, and then come back. But I don't know if this is true, if the mother was told to leave by CPS or not. And I do think the house probably is not fit for a 1-year-old, looking at the front of the house and the interior. And it makes me wonder if Jack and Lilly got into something that they shouldn't have gotten into. What was in the house? And why didn't, if something happened to them earlier, is there a reason that the parents wouldn't have called law enforcement sooner? So we looked at the stuff, the debris piled up. I don't think that the mother or father necessarily did anything to Lilly and Jack, but I am worried that they were concerned, this is allegedly in my opinion, of getting into trouble for something negligence that led to something happening to Lilly and Jack, and that the children were disappeared using an off-road vehicle, which is why I believe, in my opinion, that law enforcement is collecting trail cam. They think either an abduction took place, probably within the circle. They're wanting to rule out locals with these off-road vehicles, but maybe they want to see if either one of the parents used an off-road vehicle to get rid of Lilly and Jack. The reports say that the mom is staying at her parents' house, which is only about 40 minutes away. So I, again, don't understand why she hasn't come back to help out in any of the searches. Like I've shared with you, I don't think wild horses would be able to drag me away from that. She's had time to update her Facebook. She's changed her status to single. Okay, that's fine. But, a lot of people have questioned, like, what are her priorities? And is she just pointing the finger at Daniel to relieve herself of her own negligent culpability in this? I'm not saying she did anything. I'm just asking the question. I'm really concerned that the fact that this area is so heavily wooded. I just want to share with you my analysis. I'm concerned that we saw the water running. And for, an adult, it would probably be okay. But for children who are autistic, we know that they are attracted to water. And we've all seen the photos of that river. So I want to share with you why I believe that the stepmother and father's version of events is suspicious. Because they did portray themselves to be these meticulous parents that would watch the kids in the backyard at all times. But looking at the house, and I'm not shaming them for their house, I'm not shaming them for that, but I just don't think there's anything about the house, looking into the windows of the mudroom, or looking at the way that the front yard is kept, that says to me for sure that these are meticulous parents. I'm not saying they did anything, but I just don't see a helicopter mom here. And according to what some of you guys have shared with me in the comment section, Daniel only worked 1 or 2 days a week. That was all he could get locally to work. And so I just want to make it very clear, I'm not shaming anybody for not having money. In fact, I hope that if they are able to move back in and with the baby, I hope people will help them, get the yard and get the house into shape. But I don't think they're the helicopter parents. And if he really only did work 1 or 2 days a week, he would have had plenty of time, in my opinion, to work on the outside of the home, shoring up the roof a little bit. And she would have had time with him at home with the 1-year-old to be able to work on the interior of the house a little bit. If it's true that they were asked to evacuate the house, that she was asked with the 1-year-old due to CPS. I'm really concerned that Jack and Lilly were not in school, because and I know one of the days was a teacher planning day, but the other 2 days, again, if Jack normally went to school and it was Lilly that had a cough, why would he have been kept home also? Whenever you have a plot line with scripting, there's always going to be story holes, plot holes. Even in a well-scripted story, we've all seen movies that are really well written. We've read books that are really well written. But there's always, plot holes. It's very, very difficult to tighten it up so there are no plot holes. And in this case, I think the plot hole is the fact that they were kept out of school, that Jack was kept home when he normally would have gone to school. just because Lilly had a cough. I think this could potentially, allegedly, in my opinion, be a plot hole. And the reason I believe this is that it deviated from the norm. Jack was already in school. He was attending school. So if Lilly had a cough, he would have gone. But if there's another logistical reason for this, let me know what you guys think. Are you watching closely? Let me check in with chat. Yeah, Moon Lover's pointing out the end of the driveway scent. So why weren't the kids picked up in the woods, right? We got a couple more people doing the poll. Jamie thinks it's a 2. Jewel thinks it's a 2. I want to take a couple comments from you guys. I want you guys to come on up and talk to me. Let me know what you guys think about this. What do you think happened? Let me just back up the chat a little bit. Starla says, perhaps mom is to blame, but feeling like the stepdad tried to help cover up something. Kathleen believes one of them knows where they are. Manic says yes. Amanda says Daniel is not on house arrest. Her baby daddy is on house arrest. Malehya's dad, kid's grandpa, is convicted. Oh, that's very interesting. If you have any more information about that, Amanda, let me know. Because again, this could be somebody that's in the periphery, but if it's true that there's medication involved, this is a problem for Lilly and Jack, in my opinion. Pamela put a 1. So I think it was somebody in there that was known to Lilly and Jack, or it was negligence, you guys. That's my opinion. And they were disposed of. Leslie said, I think she knows where the kids are. Thank you for modding today. And Jazz and Holly. Nicey Marie said, it freezes up on me, had to leave and come back in. It was doing that to me like a week ago. I'm glad you were able to come back in. Yeah, please leave your DNA on the thumbs button. If you would like me to continue to cover the story, please give this a thumbs up, share it, and also subscribe and let YouTube, by subscribing, you let YouTube know that you would like to see more content like this from this channel. Marcy said, great to be here. Jet Set says, I can shame them for their house because mostly when you have children, you have to make sure that things are sanitary and clean and safe. Yeah, and I thought that the fact that this house was being kept like this, and people said, he only gets work 1 or 2 days a week. I understand. But that gives him more time, in my opinion, to work on the house, and the house does need work. And I sincerely hope, if it's just financial, that maybe, but money doesn't keep you from tidying up your house a little bit. The windows bother me. The inside of the house really bothers me. Emily says, I'm not sure if the police want them in the house until that interior is totally investigated. I thought CPS took the baby away from the mother. I've heard that she does have the child at her parents' house. I love Dan says, I left my DNA and my blood type is A positive. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Amanda says, mom and dad would have gotten the CCB 1600 for all kids, plus every 3 months, another 1600. And Moonlover says, when was their latest garbage day? That's a great question. And if there, was the trash searched? We know in the Sebastian Rogers case, they went to the landfill in Kentucky to find out, to search it. So Holly thinks that his parents, I'm assuming you're talking about Daniel here, enable him. Yeah. I mean, I just feel like if he only does get work 1 or 2 days a week, why not? Cleaning doesn't cost anything. No, it doesn't. And to me, it looks like the outside and some of the repairs, I know buying the items for the repairs might cost money, but tidying up and making it a safe, fit place to live doesn't cost anything. I don't think the backyard is a big problem. To me, it looks clean. It's more the surroundings of the backyard, but mostly what I think, and the only reason I'm talking about this is because of this, image of the house where you can clearly see things are piled up inside. And you can also see, around the front, where there's just, some stuff just laying up against the house, a lot of debris on the porch here. But I hope that if Malehya and the baby do come back to the house, and if Lilly and Jack are found safe, I hope that people, would help them and help this young couple out. But I am concerned. I would be remiss to say I am not concerned that something nefarious did happen and that there was a cover up. Jody, thank you for that. Jody says, I have not had much, but I've always made sure we were in a safe and clean environment. Yeah, it doesn't cost much to keep it safe, especially when you have a 1-year-old toddling around the house, getting into stuff. Marta said, why does his mother live like that with the brother? I don't know. And then Jazz is sharing, we have a great Facebook group on called Reporter Room. If you type in Reporter Room and Lilly and Jack Sullivan, it should pop up. Bobby says, tell someone like these children left the house in a secluded situation. Queen of Hearts says, that's a chicken coop and a chicken run. And she's talking about this outbuilding with the blue roof, I believe. I see a slide there too. I mean, to me, the yard does look like fun. It does. It looks like it looks like they fenced it in. That part was safe for the kids. I'm not saying the kids couldn't have gotten out. I just don't think it's likely that why would they both have left the yard on that day of all days? Unless the only thing that I can come up with that's, where it was a stranger abduction is if Jack and Lilly, and the fact that her backpack disappeared with Lilly, also is the only reason I think it's a slim possibility, but it is a possibility, is that the kids got up to get ready to go to the bus stop and were trying to get themselves ready that morning, and that somebody was waiting for them. But again, looking at where Daniel's standing when he's giving this interview and just how rural it is. Let me take this down. Just how rural this is. And look at the road behind him. Look at that. I mean, there's nobody out there. That's how, so if the kids were waiting at the end of the driveway for the bus to pick them up, and I'm assuming that's the bus wouldn't have pulled into the driveway, then to me, how likely is it that a stranger, someone that was unknown to them, would have come along and abducted not one, but both of them? Even in the Elizabeth Smart case, her sister was in the room with her and they still only abducted Elizabeth. But again, this was someone in the periphery of her family, that I was a person that was hired to do work on the property. So was this somebody in their periphery that became fixated on one or more of the children? I don't think we're going to know more until law enforcement tells us more. Creative Heart says, no way that was that sliding glass door silent. Yeah, I find that hard to believe too, that she's talking about this sliding glass door right here. You can see the porch with the steps, and it's with the condition of the house. I don't believe that the sliding glass door would have slid so smoothly, that it was, well maintained. I would think that after the end of the winter, it would have had some debris, maybe made a little bit of a noise. I think you're right. I don't think it would have been silent. And again, this, comes back to why this is such a problem with the statement, the helicopter mom, which is how the mother was portraying herself to be, that she, never didn't watch them. I think they played alone in this backyard probably hundreds of times and had a wonderful time. So what happened on that weekend, and why weren't they in school for 2 days? If Lilly had a cough and Jack normally went to school, why wasn't he sent? And I think, it just takes me back to what Peter Hyatt said, which is, and this is my analysis, I think that we're going to find that this was negligence. It could be somebody in their periphery that did something, and the kids weren't being watched, and it would have made it easy for them to be abducted. Or the kids got into something that they weren't supposed to get into, and something befell them, and they were concerned about keeping custody of the baby and negligence. But the fact that she's pointing the finger at Daniel is very, very interesting. Amelia says, irrespective of if they are known to the family or not, all child predators are opportunists. This is true. And Kathleen points out that the sliding doors are also heavy. And Jody says, I wore myself out keeping things spick and span, but I'm older now, and so my house is cluttered. Queen of Hearts says, no chance that is Daniel's childhood neighborhood home. And Bobby says, I was trying to say it sounds like the children left in garbage bags. Oh gosh. I didn't catch that. Oh my goodness. Lily said the blue roof is a slide like a little tree house. And she's talking about you could see like a little tree house. And I think this is the chicken coop just at the end of the yard. And you could see there's a slide, how much fun it would have been for them to go out and play. So I think they would have gone out to play lots of times and had a great time. I do want to welcome Shanna as a new channel member and Hound Lover also as a new channel member. Welcome to the Reporter Room family. Welcome Judy Wing as a Reporter Room channel member. And I want to thank 6 Cents Amelia for gifting a Reporter Room membership. Thank you so much, Amelia. I want to thank Njaz for gifting a Reporter Room membership. Thank you so much, Njaz. And thank you to Ann Lisbeth. She says, this is a great live. Thank you. And thank you for the $4.99 super sticker. That is very, very kind of you. And Marta says, was there actually a party during the week? My understanding is that they did have some type of a get together at the house. And so this again makes me wonder, why were the parents still in bed that late? Again, when you have a 1-year-old, you're usually up earlier. When you have 3 little kids, why were they in bed that morning? What was going on the night before? And Patty said, what do you think the Royal Canadian Mounted Police going to the neighborhood 18 minutes away, getting the video cards from her 7 trail cams? She had them pointing everywhere and footage is very clear. Yeah, I think that's significant. And I think that tells me that either they think that the children were disposed of using an off-road vehicle, or they think that an abduction took place using an off-road vehicle, or somebody came up through the woods. And a party with a sick child, Emily is pointing out. You're right. You're right. Thank you for giving this a thumbs up. Royal Blue said, Peter Hyatt rest. Peter Hyatt, for those of you that don't know, I'm very sorry to tell you that Peter Hyatt passed away. He had stage 4 cancer, and this has been so sad. And thoughts and prayers with Peter Hyatt's loved ones. And Leslie says, Daniel said the sliding door was shut and the kids never shut it. So if that's true and the kids never shut the door, but they were still in bed, they never got out of bed, even though they could hear the kids playing in the backyard. The parents' statements are so problematic, in my opinion. Then that just to me makes it even more likely that they were not in the backyard playing and wandered out of the yard. That's a great point, Leslie. Florence said, I understand. My mother used to tell me, don't bother to do it if you're going to do that was like a tape recorder in my mind. May Peter Hyatt rest in peace. That's so kind of you. Leslie said, paper flowers. That was the brother on the ATV. So yeah, and I think it's very, very telling that they're suddenly gathering up all this ATV footage, you guys. I don't think this is a coincidence. We know from Daniel that he had a 4-hour interview with law enforcement. So I think he probably, and we also know that Daniel has claimed to do all of the searching, right? I'm not saying he didn't do it. I'm just saying this is what he's claiming. I don't know if he did it or not, but this would be a law enforcement's way of identifying what he did or didn't do as well, right? We're not done, but I do want to say thank you. I don't want to end without thanking our producers, Njaz, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Pepper, and Christy Ballantyne, and our channel members. Thank you for allowing me to cover this case and other cases like it of missing children. We do want to find out what happened to Lilly and Jack Sullivan. These young people deserve to have justice for whatever happened to them, if it was an act of negligence or if this was a criminal act. They deserve to be found and be given a proper resting place. It is distressing, even though law enforcement doesn't believe that they have survived this. We know with Elizabeth Smart that if this was a stranger abduction, children have survived longer than this. Elizabeth Smart was gone for months before law enforcement recovered her. I also want to give super thanks and coffee gratitude so much for the last live stream that we did a few days ago. And thank you for your gifted channel memberships. Let me take a couple of more comments. Reading your comments has been so helpful. A lot of you guys were generous and came in and just shared with me like little details of things that you thought and suspected. And it really did help a lot as far as like putting all the pieces together. Beach Feet Girl says, my mom used to lock herself in her room and say, don't bother me, but she would come home from work and need a half hour. And thank you so much, Amelia, for modding today. Thank you to all of our mods. You guys, mods are the best. Make sure you say thank you to the mods. They're really great. Marta said you are looking back several days before they're. Yeah, I think that exactly. The fact that they're going back several days and looking for this trail cam tells me that a couple of things. One, they're just generally trying to rule people in or out. But two, they think also just the same thing as we're speculating here, that if it wasn't the parents that did it, that it was someone in their inner circle, somebody was in and around on those trail cams. But the fact that they would take both Lilly and Jack together for a stranger random abduction, I don't think I've ever heard of a case where both siblings were grabbed by a stranger. And, the statistics are like, less than 1% that's what happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying this, what the statistics say. So I don't think that's what happened. I think that it's more likely that this was someone that was known to the family that knew Lilly and Jack, whether it was the parents or someone in their periphery. Jody says, I always thought someone took Summer Wells too, but now I'm a bit jaded with the missing children. Well, I covered the Summer Wells case at length. That again, I think, that case just broke my heart. That we've gone all these years. She disappeared in 2021, in June of 2021, supposedly from inside her own home on Ben Hill Road in Tennessee. The fact that we've gone all these years later, we're into 2025, and we almost coming up on the anniversary, which is in June next month, and we still don't know what happened to that baby. Just really bothers me. What do I think it's possible that a stranger came up? It's possible that they would have come up. It could have been, but I think it's more likely that it was someone that was known to the Wells or someone in their periphery. We know there were unsavory people hanging out around the kids. Or it was, again, negligence. We know that Grandis went to go pick up her prescription from the pharmacy that day. Summer was given a great day. She got to go to the swimming hole and all of that. They went and picked up Grandis's prescription medication. Candace told us that Grandis gave Summer a piece of candy, but then she just disappeared. And Jess says, please like and subscribe. Yeah, it lets me know, and it lets the YouTube algorithm know that you want to see more cases like this. So if you want me to continue to cover this, please let me know. I will gladly continue to cover this case if you guys want me to. Royal says, the neighbor just turned in trail footage from May 27th to June 4th. 8 cameras, took 1 hour to collect all the cameras for answering. Yeah, and she's not the only neighbor. So if you want to know more about that, other neighbors also, we know of at least 2 other neighbors that had their trail cam footage. I think they're collecting everybody's trail cam footage. So Florence said, I'm in the middle of cleaning my floors. Oh my goodness. Starla says, does anyone know what substances the mother was previously arrested for? Let me see what I can find out, if there was any. Bobby said, I sure pray it's not a criminal act, but it's really looking very bad. I agree. Darlinda says, 753 watching and not even half that many likes. Come on, folks, hit the like button. Yeah, please. It does 2 things. It lets the algorithm know that I'm putting out a G-rated show, that I'm not, doing something that's not acceptable. But it also lets me know that you want me to continue to cover the case. If there's an interest there or not. And yes, a heart to our mods. Thank you so much. So do you guys believe the parents? Thank you so much, Amelia and Jazz and Holly, all of the mods. Pop in if you're a mod. Pop in so I can say thank you. Jody, thank you for modding. Leslie, thank you for modding. If you're a mod and you're here, pop in and say hello so I can say thank you to you. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Njaz. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Amelia. If you're a mod, come pop in and just say hello. And Brother Mike, thank you so much for modding today. So I can say thank you, guys. Brother Mike is our other head mod. Bobby wants to know, where's the biological father? He's out of the picture. And I would think that law enforcement would have worked to rule him out also. And if you think back to like the Leilani Simon case with the missing child, Quentin Simon, they ultimately found Quentin. And this is probably why the other comment about the garbage bag, is something to consider, because that's where they did find Quentin. She had something happened. We still don't know what happened. And she threw him in the garbage. Kathleen says, and thank you for modding today, Kathleen. I don't believe the mom. What kind of mom doesn't look for her kids and moves away? Jody doesn't believe them. Thank you so much for modding. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there. I just want to say thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. I really appreciate all of you guys for coming in and sharing your thoughts on this case. I do read your comments. I do look forward to hearing more about what you think happened to Lilly and Jack and what you guys think needs to be done next. I'm going to continue to investigate this case. If you guys want me to, let me know. If you want me to continue to investigate this case, I would, and I will do some of the questions you guys have asked me as to looking into the records for some of the people. I will do that due diligence for the next live stream if you guys are interested. So let me know. Just watch your words. There's some words you will get filtered out by the algorithm. I won't get to see your comments. So please subscribe. And if you want me to do this again, I will do another live stream in another day or two, and we have some more breaking news for you guys.